feel like Gordon Bombay would have taken his career to even further heights.
Everything's flashy, everything's cocaine, everything's fun.
Open wide for some soccer!
I don't care what you think about what your personal thoughts are at home. I care that you hate the Cowboys.
Call this college rule!
Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Experience Podcast. I'm Chris. This is Dom. We're always here recording at Engle Studio right here in downtown Tucson. Please give our YouTube, our Instagram a follow, a like. Give it all, man. We're just trying to get this going. We're just a couple of comics who love sports. We're on the ice again. Who are we talking about?
We're talking about a guy whose career was cut short but had just a shooting star of an awesome window, Cam Neely.
Well, it's when the dentist comes calling, and it's definitely...
They ran him out of the country and the league.
Punched out his own teammate, or punched out his own coach.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely one that you see that, because he really was a different player, like, obviously after.
The Scandinavians, they're just so dirty, Chris. Oof. Just so dirty. But Cam Neely, born June 6th, 1965, in Comox, British Columbia, Canada.
Yep.
Grows up in Maple Ridge there in British Columbia, where hockey is, of course, king. There's a little bit few more people than where Bobby Hull grew up, where packs of wild dogs roaming major cities.
Yes.
Played street hockey growing up also. Played with another Hall of Famer in a different sport. Grew up with another Hall of Famer.
Who was that?
Larry Walker.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, grew up with Larry Walker. Actually, got his figurine right there.
Interesting. I didn't even see
Colorado
that.
Rockies, yeah.
Nice.
Hockey, of course, Canada. That's kind of
Hockey's
what you
king.
do.
Yeah.
It's what you do unless you play football with that long field.
You hear them say this, and it's such a Canadian thing. They were just like, oh, yeah, I used to skate more than I would walk. And you're like, oh, yeah, I guess there's that much ice.
Yeah, I mean.
Or just that's how the Canada life is.
Snow and penguins and ice. You grip with your toes.
That's right.
Grip with your toes. But, just an absolute stud from an early age.
Yes,
as far as
very much like you would see with like these athletes. They're just like developed, and they're just kind of crush kids. You know,
he's
what I mean?
Big dude.
Yes,
he eventually becomes like 6'1", 6'2", 220, and which for the NHL at that time, it's still pretty big. So it's still big for now. But ends up dominating his midget league team for the Ridge Meadow Lightning.
That's what they're called.
Yep. No, not the little. This is just what they're called.
That's what they're called.
We're going back to 1981, 82.
Well, I'll tell you what was interesting. I saw a quote from him that said he was just like, looking back, I really didn't understand how dominant I was and how highly I was being scouted, because he was just like, I really was like one of those brain dead hockey kids where I was just like, fuck. And that's what he said, because we'll get into it. They win the Memorial Cup, and he was just like, I didn't realize that I was that highly scouted or dominating that hard.
He's probably just like, I'm playing hockey.
Yes.
I play for this team, and that's all I'm focused on.
Yes.
My next game.
That's literally what he said, and you're just like, oh, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So scores in that 81-82 season, 141 points. The following year, 56 goals, 64 assists out in Portland. They were the first American team to win, because he's in juniors now, the Western Hockey League that season. So he's a hotshot prospect, even though he probably, I'm sure he's aware, though, that there are scouts.
He said it was in this time where he was just like, oh, I am the one that, I think it was after that first season where he had all those points where they were like, yeah, dude, you're the shit. And he was just kind of like, oh, okay.
His coach, who do you think they're coming to see?
Yes, exactly.
Who on this team is better than you, and on the other team is better than you?
So he gets drafted in 83 by those old Canucks.
Drafted 9th overall. Almost a home, same province, I guess.
I was just going to say, same area. That's where they're scouting back then. They can't pay to scout other places. Strong
right winger with a hard shot. Very Brett Hull-like, only he cares about hockey a little more at this juncture.
That's true.
The one thing about the 83 draft that I realized, picks 3 through 5 were all Hockey Hall of Famers, with Pat LaFontaine, Stevie Yzerman, and Tom Barrasso.
Nice.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I just wanted to see who he was picked around, and I'm like, this was a lot of good players.
Yeah, I like that. And so was the 9th pick.
Well, yes, indeed. Unfortunately, he just doesn't seem to fit with Vancouver.
Well, he said they just had too many good right wingers, so he wasn't getting playing time. This is the time in your career when you need to get ice time just in the NHL just to get used to the speed, all of it. You know?
18 and 19-year-old kid, and you're just parked on the bench.
Yep.
He said his head coach, Tom Watt, didn't think he played defense well enough, which was also an issue. And you're not thinking it's like you can't even call him a bust because it's like he's not showing anything because he's not playing.
Because he's not playing.
And his first 3 seasons in Vancouver, 31, 39, and 20 points. They make the playoffs twice. He only scores 2 goals, and that was in his rookie season with them, which is more or less like, oh shoot, did we screw up? Were we supposed to be watching other guys then?
The quote that I heard him say, because they were like, when did you think that your time in Vancouver was probably going to be over? And he just goes, in my 3rd season, at the end of the season, the coach moved me to 4th line center. Oh. And he was just like, I had never played center. And it was one of those where you're just like, oh, trade this guy. Yeah. That's literally what that was saying.
That's like freaking Keenan in D3. 3rd line?
Yes. No, seriously, though. Like,
oh, man. Yeah. And you're not even moving up a level like Banksy, bro.
Oh,
you're Banksy, 4th line center for...
You're moving down and different positions.
And a middling Western Conference, or I guess, what was it, Adams conference team or division. I don't remember. It's East and West now. It's so much easier.
Yeah, it is.
Anyway, after 85, 86, it's like, well, what are we going to do now? But on his 21st birthday, a lot of bad things happen on people's 21st birthday, but a lot of good things happen too, like this for Cam Neely.
Well, this is the thing that people are like, I can't believe players don't have loyalty. They didn't know he was going to go and be a great player, but they still just traded him on his birthday.
Which is just like, oh.
What he said was he got a call. He was playing like golf or something, and he got a call from his sister. And his sister just goes, hey, the GM called. They said you're traded. You should come home. And he just goes, so on my birthday, I found out I got traded by my sister. And he just goes, dude, it was brutal because.
But you know what? By that same token, he's probably thinking like, well, I was just 4th line center, but where am I going?
Well, and this is what he said. He goes, I was surprised this is a quote that he said. I was surprised at the trade. I really didn't know what to expect when I got to Boston.
I saw that.
So here we go.
And he just said, from day one in training camp, I just wanted to get the opportunity to play.
Yep.
And it's not like a washing machine thing. This is more like when the Cubs traded Lou Brock, where you're just like, we don't know how really good he is.
Yep.
We may have screwed up our evaluation.
Because he's still a young player.
He's 21.
With no ice time.
And he was traded with Vancouver's 1st-round pick.
Yeah,
which is
I know.
3rd overall for Barry Peterson, to Boston. Who, isn't crappy like Vancouver.
I think they said that trade still was bearing fruit like 25 years later.
Yeah.
Because I forgot who they got, but they ended up like trade. It was like one of those where you're just like, you could spiderweb it. And
it's
you're
like
just
the Lindros
oh my
one,
God. Yes. It is very much like that.
Trade that never ends. So his first season in Boston, he fits like a glove, though, by the way.
Yes.
And I mean, in a hockey-crazed city like that, where your nickname is Bam Bam Cam, and you're getting into all sorts of fights, in addition to putting the puck in net, you're going to be a fan favorite and a town favorite.
First full season, he really steps in and dominates, and like you were saying, is that Boston hockey style, because the towns have styles, and if you're going to rough some people up in the 80s,
it's that you look like you're afraid of the sun, but you also know hockey.
That's so true.
Daywalkers is what they call them, Chris.
Daywalkers walk amongst us.
Oh, so 36 goals and 36 assists, though, that first year. He had almost as many goals in 1 year as he did with the Canucks
in 3, yeah. Well, that's what they said. They just either weren't using him right, or you know what I mean. Like it's all of that.
Like you can't. It's like the lottery. You can't win if you don't play.
Yep.
You can't show the organization you're any good if you're on 4th line center with a dude who drives a truck during the off season.
He also had 143 penalty minutes,
yes,
and
did.
So this was another thing that I heard from him. Where this off season, Mike Milbury says, "Hey man, we want you to not be less rough, but choose when to fight.
Pick your battles. Like, don't let guys bait you. Like, if a guy's screwing around with you, don't let it be some goon, though.
Well, he said this, he just goes, I didn't care who it was to throw down against, but it's a different feeling when I go to start it because then I'm already angry.
Yep.
When somebody else comes over to start it, I might not be angry. So I just might not be ready for the fight. And I was like, when he explained it like that, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense.
And it gives you an advantage. Like, because if someone's trying to fight you and you want none of it, or you're like, why are you doing this? You're like, you're not putting all that extra effort in.
Yes. And you need it.
You need it.
When you're fighting on skates.
Do you know who Mike Milbury is? We talked about him in a previous episode.
Who?
He was one of those Bruins players that went into the stands, and I think he's the one who beat the guy with the shoe.
Yeah, yeah.
In the Rangers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because he still commentates. Right?
Yeah. Oh, I think he's still around the NHL in some capacity. Yeah, it's like because I know he's on TV forever.
Beat him with a shoe.
I think he was the one that was like, I have to beat them to death with their own shoes. And then he said, Cam Neely, let's go get some brown M&Ms to fill the practice.
It's so good. So he still fights, but his penalty minutes go down, and his.
Well, I mean, the next 2 seasons they go up, but then they.
Yes, exactly, because in this era of it, it really is hockey fights like crazy.
So 87-88, an incredible season, 42 goals, 27 assists, 175 penalty minutes. Second best record in the Adams division there. They beat Buffalo in 6. Then they upset Montreal in 5 games in the Adams division final. And then they go all the way to 7 against the Devils.
Against the Devs.
And they win. They go to Stanley Cup finals. And he has a terrific postseason.
Yeah. Well, one of the best postseason players. I'm just saying in this era, like we'll talk about it at the end.
They go to the Stanley Cup finals, and you can go listen to our Mark Messier episode for that one because they end up getting swept by Edmonton. But still, that's an incredible year.
But they have a great team and a lot of young guys.
A lot of young guys.
Yeah.
Big bad Bruins there. 75 points the next season, 88-89 career high, 190 penalty. That's so many penalties.
Yep.
So great.
All-star both these years.
Yeah. No, he's making the all-star team. Like he's one of the best in the league now.
Yes.
Which, if you're
most
watching
consistent, yes.
As Vancouver going, duh.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Because Vancouver's like really bad right now, right?
I think they're right about to draft Pavel Bure.
Yeah.
Like they're in that neighborhood right now.
Yeah.
They're in that, the wall's coming down. But go to the playoffs to beat Buffalo in 5, but then they lose to Montreal in 5. And then that's probably his best year. 89-90 is probably his best season as a professional hockey player.
And he's what, 24?
Yeah,
25. Do you know what I mean? So like it's all the future's looking bright. You know what I mean? Like
future's looking bright because this is also when Montreal is starting to take a crap in the East. Philly's maybe working themselves in there, but I mean it's Boston's for the taking. You don't see anyone until a team will bring up later. We've done an episode, but you don't see anybody kind of shoehorning their way in. This is the Bruins kind of Wales conference to lose. This season he has 55 goals, a career high, 37 assists, 92 points, a career high. Now he docked his penalty minutes down to 117. They win the President's Trophy for best record in hockey.
Yep.
First round, they struggle with Hartford, winning 7. Then they beat Montreal. Huh?
The Whale.
The Whale.
It's one of the best teams.
Mallrats.
I know.
Oh, Mallrats. Oh,
you think that happens every day? Come on.
That's a big rivalry of Boston and Hartford. I
know.
Granted, it's like big brother, little brother.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Beat Montreal in 5, and then they sweep the Caps to go to another Stanley Cup Finals against Edmonton and the Gretzky-less Edmonton. This was the
we brought it up before.
The Messier series.
Where Messier proves himself.
Yep. They end up losing. I think they lost in 5.
Yeah.
But 28 points in the playoffs in 21 games. So like
he's a point. He doesn't slack off. He almost increases in the playoffs, and for this, for not winning a Stanley Cup, you're like, oh, he really did his part,
I mean, he's
in getting there and just,
he's their best player.
Yes.
He's the best player. And then in 90-91, you're thinking, this is the year. This is the year for the Bruins. 91 points again, over 50 goals. Under 100 penalty minutes, Cam Neely.
Well, it really started to click in because he said, he was just like, yeah, I mean, I just had to fight when people would talk to me, but I imagine it took like a year or two where he was just like, all right, I don't have to.
He's probably like, I promised my girlfriend that I wouldn't do this. I'm just going to go break a rake and place it in the woods.
In the woods.
To be near his family.
I still hold 2 records, right? Most penalty minutes, and I try to take my skate off and stab a guy with it.
I'm a hockey player, but I'm playing golf today.
That's right.
So they have the best record in the Wales Conference this year. First round, they beat the Whalers in 6. Next round, they take down the Canadiens in 7. And it sends up a Wales Conference Finals against who, Chris?
The big bad Pittsburgh.
The Pens.
And
Indeed.
It's interesting because Pens go back to back.
Yeah. So this was Boston's series to lose.
This is what I mean. So and it's such a change as to the franchise happens.
Both franchises right here.
Pittsburgh, the Penguins go back to back, and Boston gets fucking nut checked.
I mean, when we're looking at the 90s and even up till the mid 2000s for the Bruins, it's just a dark tale.
Dark days.
Just very dark.
So we got Ulf the dentist,
Samuelson.
And this is something I didn't know, was there's 2 different injuries, right?
Yeah.
So he gets injured game 2.
So game 3.
Game 3.
Cinco de Mayo 91.
Yep.
He's checked in the open, looking like he's trying to hip check him on the open ice, Ulf Samuelson. They're both coming towards each other. And whether it was intentional or not, I mean, they don't call him the dentist for no reason.
Thank
Chris.
you.
I mean,
that's all I'm saying.
I mean,
but it's very
he later
much
coached Sweden and Iceland in the junior goodwill games.
That's very true.
2 losses, I should add.
That's very true.
That's not true, but still, I hope it is. So the way he kind of collides with him is their knees hit.
Their knees hit.
And
hard to say that it's dirty.
I mean, what was it? Chris Nyland, who was like a huge, a famous goon for the Bruins, was talking about that hit, and he's just like, I didn't really see anything.
Yeah, that's what I watched it. I didn't.
If Samuelson did it intentionally, I mean, the way he choreographed it made it look very, and he was took some questionable shots throughout his career.
Yes.
But it's knee on knee, and Neely takes the worst of it, where gets hit right above it.
Mm-hmm.
And has to leave the game. And in that instance where he left the game up until the end of this series, it completely took all of Boston's composure out of it. It made them lose focus. And you see Milbury on, basically on the bench slamming against the boards to the referees.
Throwing his shoes.
Yep,
oh,
pretty much.
My God. Yeah, well, it changes the momentum of these franchises, not even just the series, where you're right. They take out their best player.
And it got into Boston's head.
Yep.
I mean, when you watch what transpired over the next 3 games, it really took them out of their element. And the Pens won in 6 because he got hit in the knee again in game 6. Yes.
Yeah. And I did see this where he said they propped his knee up, but he still kind of would walk around and limp. This is him in recovery next year, so they lose. And he said it was a mistake where he should have had crutches, or now they have the
brace or the air cast.
And so when he went to come back, I think he even came back in January. He said when he came back, his knee just straight up swole, in one of his first things, and then they were did an MRI, or literally he said, he goes, I don't really even remember if we did an MRI, but they scoped it and they looked at it and they were just like, oh, we have to almost and I forgot what it was called, but they had to drill holes to release pressure in his knee, and they were the doctor literally came in because to his credit, he fucked his knee up, and he thought he was just like when he got re-injured the next year when it swole up, because we're fucking swole. And when it did that again, he literally thought he was just like, oh, I'm going to be out 10 days. This is the
he said he went under with that thought.
Yes,
he went under. Like, as far as the anesthetic thinking,
yes.
I'm going to be out 10 days. Everything's going to be fine.
Doctor walks in and just literally just goes, hey, you're done for the season, and you might be done for the rest of your career. And he goes, there was that. He didn't say anything else.
I love that bedside manner, though.
It's ridiculous,
Not
man.
just talking him down, just like, hey, you like hockey? Well, maybe not anymore.
Yeah, well, and it did. It changed his career.
So the condition is called myositis ossificans.
Nice.
Which
I love some ossificans.
My girlfriend helped me out with that word.
Nice. Nice.
It's where the muscle ends up turning into bone.
Oh, yes, and it hardens.
Yeah, so it's just no matter what kind of athlete you are, maybe not a bowler, maybe not like a billiards player if we're going that far, but
that was the thing with Samuelson when you look back on it. Like, the hatred really shouldn't be there. It didn't look like an intentional thing.
He intentionally hit a lot of guys in his career.
But that one didn't look like it.
No.
And then the injury shouldn't have been that harsh, but it hardened like bone.
So the next 2 years he plays in only 22 games.
Yep.
Which is just downright awful. And it's during this period. He's already lost his mom to cancer. He's going to eventually lose his dad. Like, being Cam Neely is not as nice as it used to be.
That's right. It's a downswing. But then 93, 94.
Yep.
He has one of the best streaks that you'll ever see, where he literally scores 50 goals in his first 44 games. The only other person to ever beat it, fucking Gretzky.
Yeah, and there are hockey purists who don't count it because by this point, what Boston has figured, I read this Sports Illustrated article, they'd had some guys in recent years just get completely washed due to knee injuries. Mm-hmm. So the way that they were figuring out treating Cam was like, we'll just play him every other day or play him a couple games and then have him. So, like, 50 goals in 44 games, he's not playing them all consecutively, but that is still amazing.
Yes.
He had another injury this year where the tip of his right pinky was cut off. Mm-hmm. Comes back and plays in the game against New Jersey.
Yep.
It's amazing.
I know. He's a warrior.
Yes, he is.
But then we see the effect of having a bad knee on the other side of his. This is where it starts to. It's such a weird thing where you're just like, oh, he's going to start having hip problems on his left side.
So the Mike Bossy stuff we talked about before.
Yep.
I mean, I think it was something else. No, it was his hip, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Following season, he has 41 points in 42 games. It's just he's not able to recover and keep playing.
Yeah, he just can't play.
They lost in round one of that postseason. And then in 95-96, 46 points in 49 games, and he's 31, and he has to retire.
Yep.
That's horrible.
He retires with 395 goals, and he actually tries to make a comeback.
I saw that in 98. He tried to get himself ready for another run with the Bruins.
Didn't work, but...
No, it didn't work, but still, that's pretty damn incredible if you ask me.
Well, a lot of people didn't think he was ever going to make it into the Hall of Fame because his numbers just weren't high enough, but he had everything else.
He's like Gale Sayers, dude. Like, where that window of productivity is just there. Mm-hmm. Like, 694 points in 726 games is a lot.
Exactly.
And I saw his career plus minus was 83.
Mm-hmm. And his ability on power plays, that's what they were saying, was once later in his career, he was almost the power play master. So
I mean, that pretty ridiculous. So in 2005, he makes the Hall of Fame. But, like, in that, I would say that prime, because I don't even want to count the Vancouver years. You know, I mean, like, if you're just looking at him objectively, just look at a probably 5-season window with Boston where he's a top 5 player.
Yeah.
And at least like probably a top 3 forward in the NHL, right?
At least, yes.
You would think.
Yeah.
He has the most goals in Boston Bruins postseason history, which there are a lot of Hall of Famers for that storied franchise. 5-time All-Star as well. But he stuck and stayed around the organization, too, after his career. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, well, he became president 2010-11 when they won the cup?
Where'd they win the cup at?
Oh, in Vancouver.
They did.
Yeah.
They won Game
was
7
wild.
in Vancouver.
I totally forgot about that until I was reading it, and I was just like, oh, yeah, that's awesome.
Remember me, guys?
Yeah,
Hello.
jeez. It's such a spiderweb callback where you're just like, that's crazy. Like,
I mean, as much as I was rooting against them at the time, I was like, that is still nice. That's a nice kind of, hey, remember when you traded me and thought I sucked?
yep.
But in addition to his work in hockey, he's also been in movies.
Mm-hmm. He's actually been in a couple movies, but most famous for Dumb and Dumber, where he's Seabass. And if you see the scene, they get to cover his bill,
Yes,
and then
they
they
do.
chase him down. And one of my favorite things, they're like laughing, driving away. The Jim Carrey, and he's just like, well, what happened? Because he tells him, he's just like, oh, I saw it in a movie once. And he goes, what happened? He goes, they caught him a couple miles down the road and slit their throats. And he's like, what?
It was a good one.
It was a good one.
He comes back in the movie. There's a callback.
Yes, and this is one of the best stories from him that I heard was he couldn't get because in the movie he like kicks open the bathroom stall with Jim Carrey's character in there and
Trying to find a happy place.
and he wasn't getting the surprised look enough. So like he said he was like, dude, I did like 10 takes. And then the directors, the bros,
Fairly Brothers.
said they were just like, all right, we're going to take like a 5 real quick. And he went over to Jim Carrey and he just goes, hey, man, I'm sorry. I'm just like not getting this. And Jim Carrey just goes, dude, it's totally cool. I've had scenes where it's taken me 50 takes. So don't worry about it. And then he just goes, I kick the door open and Jim Carrey's just mooning me. He just goes, and that's the one they used, without a doubt. And I was like, that is such an amazing...
But you know what? Looking back, how surprised his face was in that scene, I could totally see that being the one.
Especially because this was the other thing, he was just like, dude, we took a 5, so I could feel myself almost being stiff, and then being like...
Yeah, just like letting it all go.
Yeah, it's so good.
Oh, God.
No, I love it.
The other thing I did want to bring up, because he was involved in cancer charities as well.
This is literally what I wanted to end with.
Perfect. All right, go ahead, dude.
No. Both of his parents died of cancer. He started something called the Cam Neely Foundation, which it's so weird that like these things that you hear about when you're like younger and you're like, oh yeah, that I just like didn't put together that he made this gigantic foundation on his own that deals with, cancer research. Like there's so much stuff with it.
Yeah, so he started the Neely House charity as well.
The Neely House charity.
And then in 1995, he asked Boston sports fan Dennis Leary to host a comedy benefit show, the Comics Come Home show for that specific charity. And since then, it has been the longest running stand-up comedy charity show in the United States, which, hell yeah, that's pretty dope.
Isn't it the one? Is it the one where Bill Burr had his famous rant on?
No, that was an Opie and Anthony.
Okay, that was an Opie and Anthony.
I can't imagine that because he was. I don't know why you would yell at Philadelphia in Boston.
Oh, in Boston. Yeah.
So,
yes, you're right.
Fuck the Flyers.
Yes. Yeah, but it is the longest running charity comedy event.
Yeah.
So
Cam Neely, just a stand-up guy. It's a shame the dentist took him out. Dude.
Oh man. Yeah, seriously, great guy.